it appears that there are no more questions. We can go on to our next part. That is the final session now, actually the road mapping session, and which will be held by Damien and us all. So basically there's exactly the same procedure as before during the discussion with Hayo. If you have any contributions, if you want to participate in the discussion, you are free to do so via the question and answers feature by Zoom or the chat. And if you want to do so by voice, please raise your hand via Zoom and we will unmute you so that you can join our discussion by voice. And now I will hand over to Damien. Go on.
Thank you very much. And thank you again to everyone who has presented throughout the summit so far. I think there's been a lot of great points raised and a lot of interesting things discussed. So hopefully we're all ready to do our road mapping thing now. And if this is your first time doing one of these, I always come in without much of a plan, but somehow it works out. I am going to share a link to the road mapping document, which has also been shared before through the wiki, but this is where we collect ideas and we will formalize this some more after the summit and factor it into our plans. As I always say, in order to make things happen with VuFind, we of course need contribution from the community. I find that a lot of my time is spent on both keeping the whole platform up to date and functional as things evolve over time, and also working with others to make sure that their contributions fit into the core package in the best way possible. So I love to collaborate with everyone, but I also very much depend upon the initiative, time, and effort of others within the community to work with me to get stuff done. So I welcome requests for any kind of functionality that's needed, but requests that also come with a willingness to collaborate and do some work are, for purely practical reasons, the ones that are most likely to get completed the most quickly. Also, as I alluded to yesterday morning, I think in addition to talking about the software and its functionality, we also need to talk about the community and its future sustainability. And I actually have some exciting and timely news. It was mentioned to me recently that the Lyrasis organization is putting together a set of tools through their It Takes a Village initiative on open source sustainability to help develop plans within open source communities. And I applied to use the VuFind community as one of their beta testers, and that application was accepted. So late 2021 into early 2022, VuFind will be working with It Takes a Village to test out some of their tools, which might be really good timing for us. I certainly don't want to wait until next September to get started on some of the sustainability efforts that we need to make. And so one of the things I'm hoping to get today, and you'll see I've already written some of this up in the planning document, is perhaps some people who are potentially interested in volunteering to work on VuFind community planning. I think what we really need is some kind of a working group to meet regularly for a limited amount of time and come up with some recommendations for the community to adopt. And the existing It Takes a Village guidebook that came out of Lyrasis and was the result of a conference that Chris and I participated in a few years ago might be a good framework to start some of those discussions. This is a way that members of the community who are less code and tech oriented but want to support our efforts could perhaps participate in and really have a critical role in making VuFind's future secure. So if anyone is willing to do this or has colleagues that they think might be well suited to this kind of planning and logistics work, I would encourage you to sign up in the document or reach out to me. And if I don't get any volunteers out of the summit, I will continue to relentlessly nag you through other channels. I really can't emphasize how important it is that we make some progress on this, and I would very much appreciate some assistance on that point. I also see that Chris has arrived, and I guess somebody has already let him in. Is that the case? Chris is often a key participant in these road mapping sessions, but he was a little held up this morning. So I see he is coming in now. Hello, Chris.
We are losing your voice a little bit. And I think it might be related to your mouse clicks.
That is interesting.
Because they come out loud and clear, and I think the microphone may be adjusting.
Okay. I will try not to click my mouse.
Hello, everybody. Sincerest apologies.
So, do we have any feedback, questions, concerns, discussion related to community organization, development of a membership model, all of those things I raised yesterday? Or are we better off delving into the technical aspects of road mapping and perhaps doubling back to this? I see Andre has put his name down. Thank you for leading the charge.
Damien, I would like to thank you for your efforts on organizing and planning this undertaking to find new ways to organize and steer and manage the VuFind community. And I think it's a great idea to join and to team up with the OLF. From my perspective, I'm a little bit involved in similar activities around the Folio project in the OLF, and I know there will be some questions regarding the organization, and maybe questions around open source software, intellectual property, steering and managing the new organization and such things. And I think we will be happy to volunteer to help dealing with these questions and find answers to them. And yeah, thank you for taking the initiative to do these things.
Thank you for your support. And you know, if we need to start this with a small group, perhaps if we can produce some initial ideas, it will inspire people to become more involved. I've certainly found that historically in the VuFind community, people are very willing to go along for the ride and let others drive. And that's been very beneficial for me thus far. But as I said yesterday, I don't want to be the only person who can do some of these things. And I think we can get there because there's a lot of talent and enthusiasm within the community.
I think I can emphasize that. So the more people from different institutions, from different parts of the world would join such a group, that would be very good and helpful.
So again, please keep thinking it over. Sign up in the document if you're willing to consider, and I will reach out to all those who sign up following the summit to come up with perhaps a more formal charge of what this group will do and scope and maybe get some action moving forward. And the monthly community calls will be a perfect way to provide updates on this and stay in tune. So as I say, you will keep hearing about this from me. This is just the beginning. So getting on to the more technical road mapping, if you look through the document I shared, we've set out blocks for the next couple of releases where we can perhaps target things that we want to emphasize. I've already put down for 7.1 the record versions functionality, since that's well underway and I think will probably be one of the sort of primary showcase features of 7.1. For 8.0, highlighted the theme functionality, of course, and mentioned that we probably will want to raise the PHP requirements again because PHP 7.2 hits end of life next month. And VuFind 8 will come out after that. I think it's a good practice to require the minimum available secure supported version of PHP, since moving forward also allows us to start taking advantage of new language features and upgraded dependencies that we might otherwise be held back from. Beyond that, I have listed a whole lot of ideas and suggestions that I picked out of conversation and talks that you know, have come up throughout the summit. I also have a list of links to other places where ideas might be highlighted, including open JIRA tickets from past summits that have not been resolved yet, the leaderboard of most voted JIRA tickets, of course, open pull requests, and our GitHub project board. I see there's a request for the road mapping document link, so I'm going to copy that over to the Summit channel in Slack. Oh, Chris is faster than me. I'll also post it. No, Chris is faster than me on all fronts. Thank you, Chris.
I got a little catching up to do.
So at this point, as I say, a lot of this is driven by what people are willing, able, and interested to work on. So if anyone would like to volunteer for particular features or make particular requests, please raise your hand, paste into the chat or Q&A. And if nobody has pressing issues, perhaps I can just bring up some of these lists of things and browse through them and share my own thoughts just to see where interest lies.
It seems that people are most comfortable adding to other ideas and projects, and that's just fine. We will definitely organize this probably onto GitHub and the wiki, you know, over the next week or so as we figure out the next major steps. So if you have ideas, feel free to just put them in the chat or the Slack or at the bottom of the page. There's some really good suggestions here. So I just want to make sure that everyone who wants to be heard is heard.
Thanks, Chris. And I guess I'm going to just share my screen and talk about a few things for everyone's consideration.
I have one question actually, if I might interrupt you, because it's not mentioned yet, but we were discussing earlier in the team what are the plans regarding Bootstrap 4 integration. So is there anything in the pipeline, or do you have any plans on working, because there's this point easier theme customization, so I was thinking about that this might touch this topic. If there are plans on your side integrating new templating, styling framework or something like that?
I would say certainly that maybe, yeah, let Chris talk.
Yeah, Bootstrap 4 is absolutely on the radar. Right now, one of the more ambitious goals for the new theme is to make it much more framework agnostic. So trying to figure out exactly how it's integrated We know a lot of people are eager to use Bootstrap 4. It definitely improves on the accessibility and the utility of the previous Bootstraps. I think it's definitely an upgrade from what we're currently using, but trying to figure out the best way to integrate it. We're still figuring that out. Whether that's going to be using the classes directly in the theme is less likely than providing a way to map their classes onto the descriptive classes that we have planned for the new theme. So instead of seeing like button default large in the thing, you'd see like, cart, like add to carts button as a bad example class. And then we can find a way to use the magic of less and Sass to map that to a Bootstrap button to bring all the accessible colors and functionalities and stylings to it. So it's definitely on the radar, and we are definitely considering it very strongly. It's definitely a highly requested thing. So there's definitely going to be a great way to use it as a solution somewhere in part of this, but it's not exactly clear how yet. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
While we're talking about the new theme, I know, Chris, you've said that you've had some brainstorms and inspirations. I don't know if you want to do any impromptu speech on any of this, or if you prefer to hold that to a future community call.
I can talk about a few of the key pillars that I want the new theme to have, which has led me to spend a lot of time thinking about it, as opposed to getting the promised pull request ready to pull it together. I see that someone added a dark theme and high contrast theme for improving accessibility. And I think that gets to the core of what I really want for the theme. Is I want it to be out of the box as accessible compliant as possible. But that is equal to my considerations for making it as easy to customize as possible. I think one of the shortcomings of the previous themes that we had so far is the styling tends to be difficult and very specific. And some of that is because of the frameworks we're using, but some of that is because of the lack of good class names. So I mentioned before the add to cart button. Adding those kinds of semantic classes makes it really easy to find what you're looking for both writing tests in the back end and styling it and using JavaScript to make everything more dynamic. Having classes like that is something that will just improve the customization and the usability and the understandability of the templates significantly. So making sure that the markup is really clean and accessible, and making sure that it's labeled properly with good classes and good data attached to it is the real core that we're thinking about it. So the breakthrough and the brainstorms that Damien was talking about while I got on vacation was mostly an approach to ensuring that those things were we're at the level that I wanted them to be. I still have a lot of open questions in my head about features that we have in VuFind, like the checkboxes that we have in the search results, and what the best accessible and stylistic way would be to display that, because there's so many options and examples out there. So how exactly the theme looks on every single detail is something that's still being explored, but more of the layout of the template has been mapped out in my head. So I'm happy to answer more specific questions about approach and things like that. But the goal is to make it accessible, customizable. And I really love the idea. I think that came up at the summit last year, if not between summits, is I want there to be a theme gallery. I think this was an idea. This was an idea that came from the community. I don't remember exactly who, and I apologize for that. Was that when you install VuFind, you can then go to vufind.org, and there's much as you'd expect from WordPress, there's like a gallery of different themes. So you can just download a folder much more easily and have something that looks less vanilla and closer to what you want to do out of the box. And whether those themes come from contributions from the community, like the amazing Finna theme and the talk that we saw yesterday of the amazing German institute that they admit it doesn't have a good English equivalent translation, the Women's Institute Archive. That is a poor translation, but the closest that we have. Those themes are, you know, are good jumping points for a lot of people. They like the style, they like the features. So seeing them, how they work in like a gallery and being able to pull that in and start there is, I think, another great way to make sure that VuFind meets its like forever goal of being as easy to use out of the box as possible. It all kind of dovetails back together. So I know I'm talking very philosophically about all of this, and if that's where we're at, that's awesome. I'd rather be there and have the discussions now about what the approach is, so that when the theme does come out, it's not a panic to get up to date. It's an excitement to be as modern as VuFind can be.
I think it would be interesting to think about whether there's a way to get from the templates we currently have to the new hypothetical idealized templates in a predictable way, even say hypothetically with some kind of a migration tool to get, you know, 90% of the way, and then be able to make it more specific and richer on top of that. And to that end, I think it might be worth thinking about, you know, what are the elements that need to be the same as well as the elements that need to be distinct. Like, what classes do we need to define that are shared by many things, and, you know, where does specificity come into play? And how does that relate to the patterns that we're currently using? Because we have a huge volume of templates that are going to need to be ported over eventually. And I think there are some that we are going to want to completely reinvent and rethink, and this is an opportunity to do that. But I also think if we have to do that level of reevaluation for everything we've got, it's going to take us a long time, and we also need to be able to have some agility, especially if we take the view of we want to have a beta in 7.1, and we'll really polish that and make it official in 8.0. Again, just being boring and practical.
Not boring and practical. That is definitely one of a few tools I was considering to help ease the known pain of moving to a new theme. It's definitely going to be much better documented as like this class is now this class as in the past. So maybe aiming for a naming system or a level of documentation that allows for a migration tool that you can drop your theme into, and it does its best to turn it into like a match of what we currently have. It's something worth exploring for sure. I know a few sources of information for that gets even nittier and grittier and practical, but I think that's certainly somewhere between the realm of definitely not impossible and definitely something we really want to have. So I'll put that in the ambitious circle, but definitely a 7.1 aim, at least for the beta, just to make it easier to make it as good as we can for 8.0.
And I think certainly the starting point is some documentation on what kinds of classes you're thinking about, so that we can discuss. And, you know, before you even take the time to do a lot of coding, it would be great to have some conceptual stuff to talk about on a community call, say, or just to
I don't think the appearance or like the style of the naming itself is going to surprise anybody. It's going to match what we currently be doing, especially in the last couple of years. The way that things have been named and the way that more frequently JavaScript classes have been given prefixes and labels and things like that. Just things like that just make it easier to understand what's happening behind the scenes.
And certainly on that subject, if we have existing JavaScript data that's being passed through classes that could be migrated to data elements, this would be an excellent time to clean that all up.
Yeah, to be clear, I'm not talking about extremely brand new patterns. I'm talking about a broader consistency of patterns and across all the templates.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking something like a CSS dictionary of, you know, these are the things that we do and what they mean, so that others can review and say, oh, but what about this need or this pattern?
Yeah.
And then if we have a comprehensive document of what we want, then it's easier to build the whole thing.
Definitely. And I think the goal, as far like to frame it with the migration tool that you're talking about, is to take, you know, header, button, nav, bracket, you know, L bracket A, and turn it into like header link. You know, just if I can reduce that specificity to a single class, I feel like I would have really succeeded. And if we can migrate that way, all the better.
Right, and similarly, if we have commonly repeated patterns of specific Bootstrap classes for specific layout patterns, can we abstract those so that they could then be more easily migrated to other frameworks and we're not locked into Bootstrap specifics?
Thank you, Todd. I saw Anonymous Wolverine typing some things in, and I really appreciate that. Before the conversation becomes completely dominated by the new theme, I want to make sure that we touch on other topics. I know there's a lot of front-end developers, especially in the panelist circle of this conference. So I want to make sure that other concerns are met. I saw on Slack that there was some talk between, and forgive me if this is a repeat of a lightning talk. That seems to be where it stemmed from. But there's a talk of LIDO or EDM driver support. So I put that in other ideas. Again, I'm very sorry to have missed the lightning talks. I really wish I could have made it, but I'm happy to be here for the road mapping. So.
Well, you'll have more fun with the video editing now. It won't be boring.
Oh, for sure. How dare you accuse our community of being boring. So I just want to make sure that if anyone has any suggestions, the chat is open, the Slack is open, the documents is open, the Q&A is open. This is the time that if there's something that you wish VuFind did, or have a question about something that does VuFind do this, so we can make sure that we either add that to VuFind or find a way to elevate that in the documentation or in the styling or in anything else that we do. Any suggestion or any question or any concern should, like, definitely, especially if brought up now, lead to a change in the documentation or the code. And that's why we have this. This is the most important block of time for the community.
Maybe one little point for discussion regarding the interface. I just noted that there are some points in the interface where very large URLs are generated. For example, if you do an export with a list with like 500 IDs, then you have a URL which may contain over 20,000 characters because it's transferred via GET. So yeah, I think that there should be used more post mechanisms if possible. But that is just a minor point. Yeah, so it's like if you were touching that these masks, then maybe it might be good thing to change that as well.
So I think part of the challenge is that some of the URLs are designed to be portable. And so if you need to carry ID information around, a post is useful only within the context of the browser where the post is occurring. There is URL shortener functionality built into VuFind, which addresses some problems of really long URLs in emails. But I think under the hood, that's just redirecting to the long URL when it's clicked on. Maybe some kind of mechanism for creating a shortened URL that performs a post might address this problem in some fashion, but that would definitely require some more thought.
Okay, so it's just at places where it's like the VuFind internal functionality, like VuFind linking pop-up. You get a pop-up when exporting something. You click in on download, and then you have this immense large URL. Or the same problem we had was like if you have if you select lots of IDs and want to save them in the favorite list or things like that. So it's not something that's somebody coming from an external page or like it's not an URL that you want to copy into an email. It's just like an URL that's used for internal purposes.
I think the other driver that led us to use get in more places was that using post then creates issues in the browser history where you hit back and get weird expiration messages and so forth. And again, maybe we need some kind of a threshold where we switch to post if the get is too unwieldy. And that might be a better compromise, especially if we're running into problems with things actively breaking because the URLs are too long. At very least, this is worth further discussion. So we should capture this as a, review long post in favorites and export, etc.
Okay. Understood, yeah.
I think we've done some changes locally, for instance, to the email functionality so that it doesn't send a long link. Instead, it sends the records one by one. So it's the email is long, but the links are short.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what the mail shortener does. I think we had that in 6.1 or something when it went into the upstream as well.
Francis Jackan raised his hand, so
yeah. Can I ask my question now?
Certainly.
Yep. If that's you, Francis.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. This is Francis from Bangalore, India. So I would like to know if anybody in the community is able to use VuFind as a discovery tool. Let's say, for example, like any other commercial a discovery tool like EDS or Primo. Is it possible to use VuFind as a true discovery system for subscribed resources?
Yes.
Certainly, for both of those, we have institutions that use Primo Central Index, and we have institutions that use EBSCO EDS.
Yeah,
so
my question is, can VuFind serve as an alternative to commercial discovery tools?
I can report from our project in Germany, which started 2011 back in 2011. For the first 3 years, we ran VuFind in combination with the Primo Central Index from Exlibris. And after 3 years, when our third-party funding ended, we had to decide whether we want to license the index on our own costs, or if we want to replace it by an own index. And then we started a new project to aggregate available metadata from our licensors, and it turned out that this is really possible. It's not an easy undertaking, but one can do it. And today, and since 2014, we run our own so-called article index, aggregated article index with, I don't know, about 140 or 180 million records in it, mainly from Crossref, for instance, and from individual publishers and distributors. So yes, it is possible, I would say, but you have to do a lot of work on metadata management and aggregating data and such things.
Okay, thanks a lot.
I guess sort of a related question is, are there tools that were developed in that project that might be reusable or shareable, or is everything far too specific? Or even would it make sense to write some sort of an article about that experience that might be helpful to others, just to understand the scope and the process, and advice on approaching publishers to obtain metadata, which I think historically has been one of the greatest obstacles outside of the technical challenges.
Exactly, that's really a challenge to convince publishers to provide licensees with metadata, but it's an ongoing process, and we, in the last years, we made good experiences with talking to them, and they tend to provide metadata much easier than a couple of years ago.
Does it involve a lot of money to get the metadata from the publishers?
Our policy is to do not spend money on metadata for already licensed content.
Okay. Oh, that's great news. Yes.
But it doesn't work out with every one of them.
Okay. So could I get in touch with you off the list to get more details about the way you went about in integrating publishers' data with the VuFind?
A list. Maybe you can send me an email and we can get in contact afterwards, and we can give you some insights on our project.
Yeah, that's what I intend to do. So can I do that?
Sure.
Thanks a lot.
As was noted in the chat, this could be a great Code for Lib journal article for someone if they care to take the time.
Yes, exactly.
So I don't see any other hands or Q&As. So unless there's another pressing topic, I thought I might highlight a handful of things that have been on my mind. As you may or may not already know, if you go to the VuFind GitHub and go to the Projects tab, this is where we have project boards showing sort of where we are, what we're working on, and some possible future developments, and also some things that are perhaps good options to be added to the list. I don't claim that I am perfect at keeping this up to date all the time, but I do find it helpful to look at it periodically and refresh my memory. And as you can see, in the candidate board over here, I've included links to past and present road mapping documents where ideas can be found, as well as highlighting some in-progress pull requests that are perhaps at the moment not moving forward, but might contain some work that's worth finishing. There are quite a few that have been hanging around for a while that I think contain really good ideas, but which haven't had ongoing conversation, haven't been able to quite get unstuck. So again, I encourage, if anyone is interested in some of these things, to join in the conversation on the pull requests and maybe get them moving again. And of course, I also have the Solar 8 upgrade, which has been delayed by some SolarMark release delays that I think will be unstuck soon. So I expect that to get moving again. I see there's something in the chat. The question is asking whether the browsing plugin in VuFind can do what Francis asked for, and I think not exactly. The Browsing plugin lets you search by journal title, and then it will provide links to browsing those journals, but it doesn't offer deep searching within the content of those journals unless you can find and locally index that metadata. And also the browsing service requires an additional subscription fee, though I believe those prices are not outrageous. Moving over to Jira for a moment. Last year, we added a Roadmap 2019 tag to a number of tickets that got discussed. And I think this year we should follow that convention again. And when we review all the notes in our document from today, if there are existing tickets related to them, we will tag them Roadmap 2020. If there are entirely new issues raised, we will open new tickets and tag them. So again, next year we can review what we did or did not get through. Certainly, if there are issues here that you're in a position to help with, I would love for you to assign them to yourself so we can see who owns them, or even just comment. If there are issues that you care a lot about, please vote for them. Jira tickets historically haven't gotten a lot of votes, but I think that is a good way of expressing interest in features. And also, if you vote for a ticket, I think that will automatically subscribe you to it, and then you'll be notified when it's resolved. We have 10 years worth or more of Jira history. There are a lot of ideas in here, and some of them are still worth revisiting and bringing to light again. And I see that the unresolved issues from last year's summit range from tiny to huge in scope. So I suspect at least some of them could be taken care of. I do notice that we have this improved documentation ticket, which could mean almost anything. And I commented on this a week or two ago, just that we should probably be more specific. I don't know what conditions allow us to resolve this ticket. Certainly, the book project I've been working on is an improvement to documentation. The videos we've done are improvements to documentation, but there's always more that can be done. So I don't know what we do with this. And I see Francis has raised his hand again.
So sorry to interrupt. Can I go ahead with my question?
Sure.
Yeah. I'm aware that VuFind has a driver to interact with many of the integrated library management systems, but for some of the integrated library management systems that are being used in our country, I don't find the driver, VuFind doesn't have the required driver. How much of effort does it require to develop a driver for VuFind to interact with ILS for which there's no driver is presently available?
It very much depends on the details of the ILS in question. If the ILS provides APIs into functionality, then it's not usually a terribly difficult task to at least get basic functionality. The ILS driver mechanism offers a lot of potential functions, and implementing all of them is time-consuming and complex. But to get just the basics of real-time availability status, user profile information, and so forth is usually pretty manageable. And you can start there and then enhance with additional functionality as it is needed. But like I say, it depends a lot on the system, because in some cases, there's an API that meets the needs, and building the driver is just a matter of mapping one API to another. But there are also some ILSs that have no documented way of interfacing with the data, in which case you end up either having to reverse engineer things and do direct database connections, or you have to do screen scraping of existing interfaces, and those things can be less pleasant to work through.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
If I may add just a little bit from my own experience, it's easy to get things going if there is an API, like Damien said. Usually getting things working perfectly or really well takes some time and effort. And it's quite often because the APIs or the documentation of the APIs is lacking, or it's not working as expected in some cases, or there are some edge cases that you need to prepare for. So it's a lot of testing and trying out different things and seeing how things work. But like I said, that it's easy to view stuff that comes from the ILS, but there are things like placing holes that tends to be one of the hardest things in the world.
I see. Thank you very much.
And definitely, these are things that there are a number of people who have gone through the experience within the community. So if you want to make the attempt, you can certainly ask for advice and assistance as needed.
Sure. Thank you.
And if there are specific systems you'd like to see supported, feel free to mention them by name, and we can at least set them up as goals so it's documented somewhere.
Sure, I will.
Great. Switching back to the inspiration list, I also wanted to show the most voted open JIRA tickets list, which is largely things that received votes a long time ago. Though new theme, that's clearly a very active issue. I'm glad people are interested in that. I thought this improvements to authority module and linked data ticket, even though it is now 8 years old, might actually still have some useful ideas, and some of what's in here may be similar to some of the work that Julia just showed us. I suspect that anything that's salvageable from here would require a lot of updating, but I'd love to carve out some time to look through this and see what we could do with it, because these things are just topics that come up again and again, but that we haven't uniformly solved.
We have done some work recently on the authority system, so I think we should be able to provide something. I can't say specifically what would be useful, but I think there are a lot of different ways to improve it.
And I think, if memory serves, that part of what this pull request involves is integration with the virtual international authority file from OCLC, which is useful, but maybe too specific. And maybe we need a mechanism for integrating with different authority systems in different contexts.
Yeah, our work is not related, but and it's related to authorities, but not to YF.
I'd certainly welcome anyone interested, and I see in the chat several people are expressing interest, to just read through this and comment. And you know, if we can do something with this, we should do it and get it resolved. And if it's hopelessly outdated, we should close it as, you know, won't fix, and open newer, more relevant tickets for the future. I'm pretty sure that the code patches on here are written against like VuFind 2 alpha from before we had even finished the original Zen framework implementation. But that doesn't mean there isn't code in there that could still be pretty easily ported to work in modern VuFind, or concepts that could be adapted. Another really old but still relevant and highly voted ticket is improving support for consortia. And we certainly saw during this summit several different institutions that have, or rather different organizations that have multiple institutions using VuFind with mechanisms for switching between them. And I think historically the problem has always been that everybody has a slightly different situation and there's not a one-size-fits-all solution. But again, if there are tools that could be generalized and shared, if people are doing similar things in different ways and we could unify on something, that could all be beneficial and reduce the amount of local overhead for managing things. So I certainly encourage people with similar problems to compare notes and perhaps share solutions upstream that could be used. And I see that one component of this ticket has to do with better support for sharing the course reserves index between multiple institutions. And again, I don't know if that use case is still active for anyone, but if it is, that's been open a long time and it's a solvable problem that we could discuss. And I think we pretty rapidly get down to issues that only have 1 or 2 votes on them, which is why I think the voting leaderboard here is not as valuable as it might be. But I encourage voting to make this more useful in future. It's definitely nice to see what the community wants. So nice to see that this list of other ideas just keeps growing. Thank you everyone for contributing to this. And we have about 20 minutes left. So are there any further suggestions or items to discuss? And if not, are there any, Francis.
Yeah. Damien, I'm aware from the wiki pages of VuFind that VuFind can import records which are in MARC and XML formats. Other than these 2 formats, can it import, let's say, for example, Excel or CSV formats?
It's really not terribly difficult to import any type of document into VuFind because it's not terribly difficult to build Solr documents. So ultimately, it all comes down to doing a transform to turn your incoming data into a document that uses VuFind Solr schema and pushing that to Solr. So VuFind ships with the Solr MARC tool that does that job for MARC records. It ships with an XSLT-based XML transformation tool that does that job for XML. I think building a tool like that for CSV files would be potentially useful. I think it would be a matter of defining some specifications for how that should work, because building a one-off PHP script or really a script in any scripting language to take a specific CSV file and transform that into something that can be indexed by Solr is a fairly small job. But I think with a little more time, we might be able to generalize that into something that could take a configuration file of some sort and do that mapping. You obviously need mechanisms for, say, splitting up delimited values in particular fields, because otherwise CSV is not very good for multiple valued data elements. And you'd need some way of manipulating and customizing data in similar ways to how we can do that in our XML and MARC-based tools. And I'd certainly be happy to go into greater depth on that, maybe on the mailing list or elsewhere, if that's something that's of interest. And maybe there's someone out there who's already doing this and would be willing to share. I don't think that we're doing anything with CSV on our end, but we do have several instances where we actually read data directly out of a MySQL database, transform it into Solr documents, and push it to Solr. So I have lots of examples of building indexers.
Solr actually has native support for indexing CSV files. So I just put a link in the chat. So if it's a simple situation, you could be able to just send the documents with proper parameters to Solr and it would index those.
Thank you, Damien and Ed.
So I see another question is whether there's any initiative to explore VuFind integration with open source learning content management systems. I think we're talking here about things like Moodle, and that's definitely something that's been discussed, at least at a high level. I believe there's some kind of a standard for integrating with these systems, and there's an open Jira ticket about it. I can't remember the exact name of the standard or the ticket number, but I could do some searching and try to dig that up. The bottom line for me is it would, yes, LTI, thank you. So let me find that ticket. I'm pretty sure that, yes, here it is, 1320. So I think I don't personally have a use case related to this, which makes it difficult for me to think about it. But if somebody does have a scenario where this would be valuable, I'm very happy to work with them on trying to come up with a proof of concept integration. And you know, as I say, it's simply because I don't work with our learning tools in my own work, so I'm not that familiar with all the details of what one might want to do or how it might be done. LRMI, we've got a new acronym. I don't know that one.
Ooh, yeah, there is no an issue for that, but that's Learning Resource Metadata Initiative or something like that. So that's another metadata format for learning resources, which goes sort of goes the other way. So you want to integrate those into VuFind. That's where you go for.
I see.
Yeah, from our side, we had some discussions as well, as we are using Moodle in our university. If there would be a way to import literature lists from VuFind, like favorite lists or something like that, into Moodle, and then you could also see already in Moodle the accessibility, for instance, so that you, which I think, I mean, at least the import of the bibliographic data would be possible, right? To have some exports and all that stuff. I think that would be quite possible with the existing API. But apart from that, also having information on availability of the items would be great. And I mean, the thing is, we don't have like a very urgent use case from, well, we don't have any agents that are asking for it actually, but me personally, I'm also involved in, I'm also like a special interest librarian, and therefore I very often see that teachers are sharing literature lists on plain HTML file websites, right? And they are not providing links to the catalog, and I think that would make it more easier for students to actually use the library catalogs, because I know, for instance, that lots of library students, lots of students, especially from mathematics and computer science, are not aware at all of the library catalogs. At least on our university, they're more used to Google Scholar and the likes, and therefore I think such an integration might make VuFind or those discovery systems more visible, right? And so, I mean, the question then is how to find the time for it and all that stuff. But I think the idea is very good and could be very useful.
I wonder if so this sort of falls under the category of embeddable VuFind. There have been various use cases for various problems where one interesting solution might be to build a custom VuFind theme that kind of takes away a lot of the framework of VuFind, you know, headers and footers and so forth, and highlights the content, and then be able to just apply that theme and put a VuFind page in an iframe on some other page, and magically you've you've integrated things. Or, you know, to take it in a more modern direction, if we needed to expose some additional APIs and build a web component that could consume those, so that you'd have a way of putting a VuFind list with availability status into another application, that would be another interesting project. But as I say, the idea of a no framing, iframeable theme is a pretty inexpensive way to achieve some of these effects if the platforms you're working with allow it. And maybe that's something that we could work on making more easily practical, though I think it's pretty easy as it is. It just requires some custom theme configuration.
Yes, and some investigation if those learning platforms are actually supporting those features and are not blocking off iframing and all that stuff, right? Yeah, but
exactly.
I agree. I mean, it's always the trade-off. What's realizable and what's like the bigger goal of implementing the whole integration of VuFind, right? Yeah, but I agree. Yeah. So if there are any projects going on or any interest? Oh, I just read now that. Ah, so you're already doing that. Okay, that's interesting. So there's already an iframe integration of VuFind in Moodle existing, and yes, but it would be great to have some more functionality, obviously. Yeah. And I can say that I had the actual need or the request by some users, also students from computer science, that were somehow frustrated that their lecturers are not handing them over like very good reading lists, and therefore they were asking actually how to maintain shared literature lists. And so that would be something, for instance, that would be very helpful in those learning platforms, that the students could organize themselves. And by having access to the library catalog, but inside the learning platform, and then, but not only for browsing, but then for actually building lists and all that stuff. Yeah, but so if there are any initiatives going on to this direction, I think that would be pretty interesting. Feel free to contact.
I wonder if it might even be useful if somebody would be willing on a future VuFind community call to do a presentation on the LTI standard to inspire some ideas.
Yes,
and
that would certainly be very helpful for prognosticating or for at least figuring out how much time that would cost, right, to implement the integration. Yeah.
Right. And I see that Sue Hemmons has asked, is there anywhere that the community can contribute recipes or working use cases like the above and other areas? And I'd say there are several potential places. Maybe we need to think about creating a more appropriate formalized place, but certainly Jira tickets are a good place. You know, if there's a problem that you're solving or that you see someone solving and there's not a ticket for it, opening a ticket and linking to the example is maybe a good way to get that underway. But I think there are also situations where it's not so much about wanting a feature, it's more about wanting to showcase what institutions can achieve. And then I think the wiki is the best place for that. And it's a question of where. And if something like a VuFind cookbook would be helpful, I'd be more than happy to create such a page. And then, you know, maybe we could begin, you know, just as a thought, some of the stuff that we showed off in our VuFind showcase on the first day of the summit could probably be summarized into that cookbook as, you know, these are sites that do these things, and these are either the existing VuFind functionality or the local customizations that were needed to achieve these effects. And I'd be happy to get the ball rolling on a first take on that if others would like to collaborate with me and flesh it out further. And I hope somebody will write that in the planning document and put my name on it, so I'm held to it. I think that might be a good complement to the current just long list of people who have installed VuFind. It might provide a little more context.
I just remembered an idea I had for a while now. It's regarding the International Image Interoperability Framework, the IIIF. I wish VuFind would be more aware of IIIF content. So I could imagine that, for instance, thumbnail previews could be easily pulled from IIIF sources if they are recognized as IIIF sources. And I would like to draw your attention to a cookbook recipe in the IIIF repository on GitHub. There is a draft for defining where IIIF manifest links could be stored in Mark 21, so it could be easier in the future to detect IIIF content in Mark 21 records, and so it would be easier for software like VuFind to understand that there is a IIIF resource available, and content could be integrated in the front end.
I think that's a great idea, and I am a big proponent of IIIF, so it would be nice to better reflect that in the VuFind project. In fact, as I mentioned, we're sort of at the beginning of the process to re-architect our own digital library, which heavily uses IIIF. And so as that project develops, that may be a good excuse to contribute some more things as well. And also, as I say, we have locally custom code for generating IIIF manifests based on hierarchical objects in the VuFind index. And I don't know how reusable that will ever be, but it's something I'm happy to share in all its hideous glory if anyone ever wants to see it.
Great. I have put the link to the GitHub issue in the chat, so if you want to comment there and help making this one more popular, and maybe to get a decision. This would be good, I think.
That's great. I will. Oh, Chris is ahead of me again, I think. So I see that at this point, we only have about 4 minutes remaining. I don't know that we've done a whole lot in terms of actually setting specific targets for specific releases, but we've had lots of great ideas discussed. And I think perhaps after Chris and I have sifted through this, we can discuss it on a near future community call and refine it some more. I'm going to stop sharing because I don't think you need to watch me scrolling up and down endlessly.
Even though the conference is coming to a close very soon, the document will remain open. We're not going to lock it or anything like that. And we'll be linking to and moving a lot of these ideas and projects to Jira and GitHub, the GitHub roadmap. So you'll be able to continue the conversation and track any progress or what and how they eventually get slated in those places. So this isn't the end of the conversation, but I appreciate everyone's feedback so far. It's been very great.
Definitely, and you know, thanks to everyone who contributes every year. I look forward to more contributions in the year to come. If anyone is new to this and needs help on how to get started with pull requests or any of that, please reach out. I absolutely love using GitHub as a collaboration tool. I think it's fantastic. And even if you have a small something to add for us, just using this as an excuse to learn some of those tools is totally worth it. And I encourage you to try.
All right, so I would say goodbye now. Thanks a lot for the summit. Thanks to all the contributors and especially also to you, to the attendees. I think that was a great summit. I mean, 3 days full of program. And if anyone needs any certificate or something like that, please feel free to contact us. We will send emails around with further information on when you will find the videos of the talks online. And also, again, for our a short reminder to all our contributors and speakers, please share your slides with us. We have, yes, please share them if you haven't done so. And yes, apart from that, and we have also one more week, the VuFind Summit store open. So if you feel now like being a little bit sad that it's all over now, you can order yourself a t-shirt or something, or any other nice merchandise article. And yes, and I hope that we see each other again next year. And thanks again, and goodbye. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all very much. Bye.
Goodbye. See you next year.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Take care.